In yesterday's Indian Express, a classical article appeared on page 1. What this article was mentioning that after defeat of delimitation bill in the Lok Sabha, the government is again planning to build the bill, and also at the same time it is planning to introduce one nation, one election bill. The article covers that the government is to revise the legislation and also bring in one nation, one election bill both before 2029 Lok Sabha elections. Now, the Union Ministry is preparing for a fresh delimitation bill after it was faced with a stiff opposition and not able to pass the 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill. And apart at the same time, they are also working for one nation, one election bill. Now, we have seen what delimitation bill was all about, that it was rejigging the territorial constituencies in India and reallocating them to reflect the present realities of current India. But through this article, let us try to understand a major issue, which is one nation, one election. We'll understand what is the concept, what is the present status, what are the new things that will be introduced, how one nation election has evolved, and we'll also understand the arguments that are in favor of one nation, one election and arguments that are against one nation, one election with a possible way forward. So through this video, we will try to understand all the nuances related to one nation, one election in one go. Let us see what one nation, one election is all about. So the first question is, what is one nation, one election? If we go by the understanding, one nation, one election is easier to understand, but it's sometimes confusing also. People may believe that one nation, one election means that the entire country will vote on one day. No. One nation, one election basically here stands that it will synchronize the elections of Lok Sabha and that of the state legislative assemblies that will be done in a particular constituency on the same day. The entire country will not vote on the same day. In a particular constituency, the election for the Lok Sabha seat and that of legislative assembly will happen in one day. The possible benefit of this is that it will save a lot of cost. The election will still be conducted in a lot of phases, and this has been also added here that not a single day all India poll. In one constituency there will be polling on the same day. In our one nation, one election, the recently introduced bill, there were two bills that were introduced after the recommendation of the Ram Nath Kovind Committee. We are planning to basically not only mix the Lok Sabha elections with that of the state assemblies, but after that, in 100 days, we also plan to conduct panchayats and municipalities election. Let us understand what are the benefits in a short. That it will lower the cost because it will avoid the expenditure that is done on the repeated cycle. Less paralysis because there will be no imposition and reimposition of moral code of conduct. So we'll save a lot of time where we cannot take major policy decision during the moral code of conduct. Then machinery will be freed. You have seen when elections are being done, government teachers and other people are involved in conducting these elections. So these staff will be free, security forces will be doing the primary job that they are assigned to and not to conduct the election. And policy focus because there will be stability for a period of next 5 years. So we can better plan our policy ahead for the state as well as for the country and move forward as a whole. But this system is basically, I have told you, it is a two-phase roadmap. Let us understand what Ram Nath Kovind suggested. In phase 1, Lok Sabha and state assemblies election will be synchronized. So, for the Lok Sabha territorial constituency and for the state assembly, the people will vote on a one single day in one territorial constituency. I am repeating it again, so do not get confused that the entire country will vote on one single day. Then, after the phase 2 will happen, where municipalities and panchayats will be synchronized, and this will be done within the 100 days of Lok Sabha and assembly polls have been done. Now here only the first major contention arises. What is the first major contention? For mixing up Lok Sabha and the state assemblies election, the government has to introduce a constitutional amendment bill. But the central government opinion is that they do not need ratification. They believe that no ratification is needed from the state government. Basically, it will be done by special majority. And the state ratification will be needed in clubbing in the panchayats and municipalities election. Why is central government saying that we do not need any kind of ratification from the state assemblies? Because they are saying that we are not altering legislative, executive or financial relations between center and state. Hence, we do not need to get the approval from the state government. And that is why for phase 1, they are saying that we do not need ratification from the state. But we have to understand one more thing. What is the state government's argument? The state government argument is saying that you will be altering the election cycle of the state government altogether. This will also alter how the state government fill their seats in the Rajya Sabha, because Rajya Sabha seats are filled by the representation coming from that of the state assemblies. So it is changing the entire political structure of India. So the state governments needs to be taken on board for these things. So this is a first bone of contention between the state government and that of the central government. So we have seen the opposing views. But these are the two phases which have been advised by Ram Nath Kovind Committee. Now Ram Nath Kovind Committee, why One Nation One Election has been in news? Because One Nation One Election is not new for India. Indian elections were conducted in India on the basis of One Nation One Election only. It was only after non-Congress government started forming in various states, the elections were detached between the central and the state government. So One Nation One Election is not a new concept for India. It was working very fine till 1968-69, where some of the state assemblies were dissolved. So their elections, because of the constitutional limitation, got detached. And after the emergency was declared, they have been completely detached. So this is the criteria that we have been familiar to the concept of One Nation One Election, and we plan to remove to that area. But it has its own set of challenges. We will come to that later. Now, Ram Nath Kovind Committee, which was the recent committee established for this purpose, is not the first committee that has recommended One Nation One Election. Law Commission has recommended the same in 1999. Then a committee was formed in 2015, 2017, 2018, and finally the Ram Nath Kovind committees, whose recommendations have been accepted, and they have recommended a plethora of changes under Article 82, under Article 83, under Article 327 that will be done, for which constitutional amendment is needed because the constitution needs to be rechanged. And one of the major change that basically will be done was according to Article 83, 172 and 327, a change to Article 82 Clause A, and introduction of a concept of what we call as unexpired term. I have told you there are two bills. There are two bills, one for the UTs and one for the state assemblies and that of the center. What is the present status of this bill? These two bills are lying before the Joint Parliamentary Committee. The Joint Parliamentary Committee, the article also explains that the Joint Parliamentary Committee has explained that they are making good progress over the evolution and over the stalemate of this constitution limitation that can arise. So are discussing it with all the possible partners. So this has to be seen. Now, what it is doing, let us understand the clauses of these major changes that will happen. One is Article 82A. Article 82A will be changed to include a word which is called as appointed date. What will be this appointed date? It is very simple. The appointed date will be the first date for which a newly elected Lok Sabha will meet. And the tenure of the full term will be that of 5 years. The full term will be that of 5 years. This will be changed under Article 83. So appointed date and full term is that of 5 years. But a new term will also be introduced if these bills are to be passed, and this is that of unexpired term. Now this, you may understand what is this unexpired term. It is also a very simple concept, and we are familiar with somewhat of that if we have studied panchayats or municipalities. Unexpired term here means, suppose the government falls in between of any state government, suppose MP's government fall in between. So MP and the legislative Lok Sabha elections were conducted on the same day, all the states. We are taking the example of Madhya Pradesh. Suppose the government falls after 2.5 years or after 3 years. Now the elections have to be conducted in MP because we cannot wait for the duration that we have to wait for, let's say 2 years more till the time Lok Sabha elections are again conducted. So what we'll do, we will re-elect the MP Legislative Assembly. But now this newly elected Legislative Assembly will not be constituted for a period of 5 years, but only for a remaining period of 2 years. This is the concept of what we call as unexpired term. This is what similar system that we today follow in panchayats and municipalities, where the newly elected panchayats or municipalities after the dissolution continue after only for the rest of the tenure. So unexpired term is also the same. If a government falls after 3 years, 2.5 years, the new government that will be formed will not be formed for a period of 5 years, rather only for the period of years that are remaining. Then it will also be changed to Article 172. Article 172 is just the state corollary part of Article 82 and 83. And then it will bring the changes under Article 327, which will basically relate to the conduct of simultaneous election power to the Election Commission. So this will be giving power to the Election Commission. So this is again the explanation of the unexpired term mechanism. The device keeps the cycle intact. What is the purpose? So that in no scenario Lok Sabha and state assemblies elections can be completely detached from each other. That is why we will be introducing this concept of unexpired term when these bills are passed. And it is exactly what is critics' target. This is what the criticism is being highlighted, where there is a stiff opposition from the state governments that you will be hampering with the federal structure of India, where the federal structure, where the government, if they will fall, or in case of hung assemblies, they will not be able to complete their tenure now. So this is basically what the problem majorly arises. Now, I have already told you what is the current status, that both the bills are pending before the Joint Parliamentary Committee, and Joint Parliamentary Committee has explained that they are making progress in discussion on these bills on to find a resolution over any kind of disputes that may arise, which may stall the passing of the bills once they are reintroduced in Lok Sabha for their final passing, and also in Rajya Sabha. Now, what are the constitutional challenges that we will be facing while passing this bill? This is also very important. What are the constitutional challenges? And then we'll come to arguments in favor and argument against. What are the major challenges that will be faced? The first is the bill will require special majority. Now, special majority can only be achieved if the opposition parties are also on the table. If the ruling coalition is not able to bring the opposition also on the table, these bills can also meet the same fate as we have seen in the case of delimitation bill or the presently introduced women reservation bill that was clubbed with the delimitation bill. So it will become very difficult for the ruling government to introduce this majority or to attain this majority which is required to pass such bill if they fail to bring opposition on the same table. First problem is that. Then it is, I have already explained you, ratification dispute, where the central government believes that the phase 1, that is mixing of Lok Sabha election with that of state assemblies election, do not require a ratification from the state, but state government believes that it will require ratification. Central government is saying that we are not altering legislative, executive or financial relations. That is why we do not need any kind of approval from the state government. We do not need ratification from 50% of the states. But the state governments are saying that the process will fundamentally alter the federal structure altogether for the country, and that is why any bill that alters the federal structure or any constitutional amendment bill that alters the federal structure should be ratified from the state also. So this is another point of contention. The third major constitutional challenge will be that of basic structure. Why basic structure? Because the Supreme Court in S.R. Bomai case and other cases have clearly explained that federalism is a part of basic structure. If federalism is a part of basic structure and then there are allegations on the part of the states that the center is trying to alter their policies altogether, it will be a big constitutional challenge and the validity of it can be challenged before the court. So it will create a process that might be passed, but that might be passed by the legislature, but can be later discarded by the judiciary. And it will not only create a fight between center and state, but again create a fight between the executive and the judiciary. We have already seen it in the course of historical evolution in India, how judiciary and executive were at loggerheads at many occasions. So we do not want that. So this is another constitutional challenge that will be there. Then there is something called as local self-government. Synchronization of elections with that of the local self-government will basically create what? It will defeat the purpose. The local self-government is for the purpose of decentralization of democracy, not to curb them altogether. Why did we introduce local self-government? Why did we introduce 73rd and the 74th Amendment? We have introduced the 73rd and the 74th Amendment for the purpose of basically decentralizing the democracy. But when we are going for one nation, one election, we are again centralizing the trend. So this can be also problematic. Then there is a possible misuse of Article 356 that has been highlighted by the state governments. That Article 356 might be used, President rule might be imposed. There have been instances, what we can say, which we would have seen in Arunachal Pradesh, in the famous Nabam Rabia case that we study in Federalism. If you know about Nabam Rabia case, if you do not know, let's do a little search about the Nabam Rabia case, what happened in Arunachal Pradesh. So the state governments are saying that the central government can misuse Article 356 on the basis of reports of the governor, dislodge the state government, and then basically will allow the new state government that comes into picture only to be continuing for the unexpired term. So this will again be going against the federalism. And then last is, it will also regard a statutory overhaul. So the one nation, one election is possible not only by changing what is written in the constitution, but a lot of ancillary acts. For example, Representation of People Act 1951, a lot of changes have to be introduced in that also. So statutory agreements will also be needing a lot of changes. This is another problem. These are some of the political challenges. I have already explained you this, that the parliamentary arithmetic, that 2/3 members are needed for passing the bill. This means that the constitution amendment can be passed only when the opposition parties are also on the same issue, where the Congress, TMC, DMK and AAP and left parties have opposed the bill as being anti-federal. Federal trust deficit is there. Then it is also a question on the regional party survival. Because why this is a question on regional party survival, we'll see. Because there have been reports suggesting that when center and state relations or center and state elections are done together, when they are clubbed together, there is a bigger chance of the national political parties to win the election. When center and state elections are clubbed together, the parties which are having the power in the center have a better chances of winning the election. And this basically puts the regional parties at risk. And regional parties in India are important, or in any country, in any democracy are important for strengthening the federal axis and to strengthen the democracy. So this is also where we will face a problem. And then the transition mechanics will be very difficult. Why transition mechanics will be very difficult? For example, if we have to implement this before 2029 elections. Recently we have seen elections done in West Bengal. If we have to club together Lok Sabha election with that of State Assembly election in 2029, this means the presently elected BJP government in West Bengal will not be able to complete the tenure. And vice versa, it will be with the case of Assam. Vice versa, it will be case with that of Tamil Nadu. So many governments will not be able to complete their term. And this will basically create a problem that many state governments will be not completing their term, creating a transition mechanics issue in this case. Let us understand now the arguments that are in favor of the bill. What are the arguments in favor of the bill? Why one nation, one election should happen? What are the arguments that the JPC, Ram Nath Kovind Committee, other high-level committees formed before that have highlighted? Let us see. It will lower the cost. And yes, this is a reality. Elections in India are one of the most expensive things that is seen around the world. For example, Election Commission have seen that the poll cost for the Election Commission only to the total cost of 4,500 crores. This is the cost of Election Commission. Let me give you another fact that the total spending that has been done on election according to reports by that of Center of Media Studies and Center of Management Studies, have shown that it is close to 1.35 lakh CR. 1.35 lakh CR. So what does this highlight? That elections in India are not only a huge cost for the election commission or a fiscal burden for the government, but it generates a lot of black money also. And this is where the problem begins. This basically creates a parallel economy for India. So if we are basically to club the elections together, and elections will be a 5-year process. So what it will do, it will reduce the burden and the black money spending significantly. Then second is governance continuity, because fewer elections should be there. So there will be no problem of what we called as policy paralysis, because focus will be that on development, because frequent model code of conduct will not be imposed. In model code of conduct, the government cannot introduce big reforms, and it leads to policy stagnation. So once the elections is a 5-year process, this will decrease. Then there is what we called as efficient machinery. The staff, mostly teachers and security forces, are not repeatedly pulled off from their official job. Teacher has a duty to teach. Security forces have a duty to provide security, which is their primary purpose. Their primary purpose is not to basically participate as an election staff on the request of election commission. No. So they will be doing their primary job, which is also very important. So this will be increasing the efficiency of the machinery. Higher turnout. Law Commission and the Niti Aayog reports both have highlighted that there will be an increase of 17 to 21%, because they have highlighted that whenever the state elections are conducted with the national elections, the states which have their elections coinciding with the national election, there are still some states whose elections, whose legislative elections are combining with that of national elections. There is a boost of 17 to 21% in the voter turnout percentage. So this is a big change, and this trend is likely to continue if the people have to vote on one single day in a territorial constituency. So this will also be a benefit for the election turnout, and we want more and more people to vote. Then it will also lead to what we called as cleaner finance. A single cycle may reduce black money and constant donor pressure that is there. So this is already I have explained you in point 1. And then it will basically bring economic stability. The reports submitted by Ram Nath Kovind Committee have suggested that it can boost the Indian economy to the tune of 1.5% of the GDP, because money will not be spent again and again on elections. So this is contributing to the overall GDP of the country, reducing the black money, increasing the efficiency machinery of the government, solving the problem of policy paralysis, and it will also increase the turnout, which is a classical example of what we can call as truly achieving the meaning of representative democracy. So these are the possible benefits of one nation, one election. Then what are the arguments against the one nation, one election? First, cost is overstated. Cost is overstated. Election spend is only 0.1% of the budget. So the cost is overstated. The benefit that we believe that we will get from elections being conducted together is not true. Further, the critics also highlight that once you conduct one nation, one election, once you conduct legislative assemblies election together with that of Lok Sabha, you have to roll out new what we called as EVMs and VVPAT machinery, because you have to increase the EVM and VVPAT machinery. What we currently do is, suppose elections are being conducted in West Bengal, so we'll use EVM and VVPATs there, and the same set of machinery can be used in any other state like that of Rajasthan. But once you are conducting the elections in one go, so the cost of acquisition of this EVM and VVPAT will be itself huge. So this is one of the major problem, that the stated benefit or the potential gain that we believe of 1.5% to the GDP is not true, and the potential benefit that we highlight, that the cost of EC to conduct election will decrease, is not true as per critics. Then second, paralysis is not solved. Why? Because one nation, one elections might be conducted, but there is no guarantee that the government may survive for an entire duration of 5 years, both at the level of center and also at the level of state. Government can still fall. If the government can fall, Then it will do what? It will introduce midterm election. Elections have to be reconducted only for the unexpired term though, but elections have to be reconducted. So it will again lead to election machinery be reinvoked. So the cost will again inflate. And also when the elections are to be reconducted, all the political parties, whether they are national or regional parties, they have to put their effort in the elections. So what will happen? That policy paralysis will still arise when the government will be dissolved in state or at the level of center. It goes against the principle of federalism and basic structure. No point in repeating the same point again. We have already seen how it creates a federal issue because they are not allowed to complete the full term. It basically is seen as a voter behavior nudge. I have already told you, this is also a critique, that the national parties and that the elections when they are conducted at the national and the state level at the same time, the people have a higher tendency to vote for the national parties, and this put regional parties at risk. What have the reports highlighted? Studies have highlighted that 77% of the same party outcomes when simultaneous elections are done, and when they are not done together, it is only 48%. So what can happen, basically what this point is trying to say, that the regional parties will not only lose, but the regional issue can be subsumed in the national issues. Because we will feel that we need to bring stability to the country, and this is a major national issue. There might be a regional issue of development, population growth, education, medical health facilities, but now they will be clubbed in the national stability issue. So what will happen? Regional parties as well as the regional issues, the regional challenges will lose its credence before what we called as that of national issues. So this is another wrong thing that can happen that the critics have highlighted. Then weaker accountability. Staggered polls are rolling. Midterm check on governments that synchronized has been removed. So what it will do, it will basically weaken the accountability, because now when the midterm elections are being conducted, the new government is supposedly formed for 1.5 years. After 3.5 years, a government falls and a new government comes in for 1.5 years. Now this party that has come for only 1.5 years, they know that our tenure is not 5 years. So why do we need to bring big electoral reforms or big policy? Why do we need to bring big policies that will contribute to development? Understand. For example, a government falls after 3.5 years. The new government is elected for only 1.5 years. The government that is newly elected knows that I only have a tenure of 1.5 years. I do not have a full tenure of 5 years. And the people will still decide my fate after 1.5 years. So why will be they willing to introduce a thing or introduce policies that will be beneficial or long term? So the agenda of long term stability, policy paralysis being solved, all will be not met, and the people will be ultimately suffering because of the midterm elections or because of the unexpired term clause. So this is another thing highlighted, that the people's power might be decreased or the people issues might not be replicated, and the parties will be more focused on gaining to power rather than to vote for the people. Then logistics and EVM costs. The reports have been highlighted that there is a 10,000 crore, nearly 10,000 crore cost will be there, because not only we have to get first for the acquisition cost of EVM and VVPAT so that the elections can be conducted in the entire country together. So the first cost is that cost of acquisition. The first cost is the cost of acquisition of EVMs and VVPATs such that the elections can be conducted for the Lok Sabha and the State Assembly in the entire country together. First cost is that. Then these machines need to be replaced in every 15 years. So that will be additional cost. So the whole criteria of reduction of cost seems to be defeated, and this is what critics have highlighted. So these are the major arguments that are going against, that the cost benefit is not so much, federal issues are being diluted, regional parties and regional issues might mixed with the national issues, and the potential benefit or the policy paralysis may still remain. So what can we do to move forward? What is the last thing? How can we move forward? First thing that we have to understand, that we have to build a consensus. Democracy is not about numbers. Democracy is about debate, discussion and deliberation. And if the ruling party is able to bring or build a broad consensus, it will be going of a way forward. So we need to build a genuine consensus. The second thing that the National Party needs to do is to settle the ratification dispute. That is, whether 50% of the states need to agree on phase 1 or not. The first thing that they have to solve is to solve the dispute over phase 1. So this is the way forward that they should adopt. We need to safeguard the stability. We need to add devices like constructive vote of no confidence for hung assembly and midterm collapses, such that we are not losing on the main idea. We have to basically go for a pilot project first, how its system actually works, understand the voter behavior presentation, understand the potential windfall gains that we might have from conducting the elections together. So we need to first pilot it and then launch it at a national level. Otherwise, it can backfire also. So the pilot project is must. And then we should also anticipate what we call as judicial review, because it can test the basic structure doctrine. So we should be very careful that the federal principles are not violated, because even if the bills are tomorrow passed, what can happen later on is that even after passing of these bills, they might be challenged in the court, and the court can strike them down as violation of basic structure, which will defeat the entire purpose and entire cause and also the time that has been elapsed during all these things. So this is the possible way forward, that is to build consensus, solve the problem of ratification, safeguarding some mechanism of stability, starting it as a partial way or a pilot way, and then conducting it for the national level, and then also anticipating the judicial review or the judicial issue that may arise to safeguard any kind of defense from the basic structure, which may further create more problems for the issue. So I hope now you understand what is one nation, one election. Is the concept new, or we have already seen it? And you also understand what are the arguments in the favor, argument against, way forward, and also political challenges as well as the constitutional challenges that might be there while passing the bill. So I hope that this is clear to you. Thank you.